Some messages do not simply arrive, they find you. And if this one found you today, if something in you stirred the moment you saw it, that was not random. That was the part of you that already knows what this message is going to confirm. There is a truth that lives beneath the surface of your everyday life, beneath the roles you play, the titles you carry, the version of yourself you present to the world. A truth you have sensed for as long as you can remember, but perhaps never had the language to express. You are not ordinary, not in the way that phrase is usually meant, as flattery or encouragement, but in the deepest and most literal sense. What you carry inside you, the depth, the perception, the inexplicable resilience, the sense of being here for something that has not yet been fully revealed, is not common. It was placed in you intentionally. It was given to you by something greater than circumstance. You did not come here simply to exist. You came here to remember what you carry, what you are capable of, and what the noise of the world has been working, often successfully, to make you forget. This message is that remembering. Before we continue, take a slow breath. If something in you is already responding to these words, if there is a recognition happening beneath the intellectual, subscribe to this channel. It was built for exactly this kind of soul. And if this arrived at the perfect moment, leave 1111 in the comments as your quiet declaration that you are ready to remember. Now let us walk through 10 signs that you carry something divine, something rare, something real, and something the world has not always known how to receive. 1. You have never felt entirely at home in the ordinary world. From early in your life, something in you stood slightly apart. Not in a dramatic or obvious way, not necessarily in a way that anyone else could see or name, but internally, in the quiet of your own experience, there was a persistent sense that the life unfolding around you, the way most people seem to be moving through the world, did not fully account for what you felt inside. The things that seemed to satisfy others left you with a hunger that nothing ordinary could fill. The conversations that absorbed the people around you felt to you like they were somehow missing the point. The systems and structures that everyone else seemed to accept without question struck you as deserving of examination, and often as deserving of something better. This was not arrogance, it was not superiority. It was the experience of a soul that arrived in this life already attuned to something deeper, already oriented toward a dimension of existence that most people have not yet encountered or do not yet know to look for. That feeling of gentle displacement, that quiet sense of watching the world from a place slightly outside its center, was not evidence that something was wrong with you. It was evidence that something extraordinary was in you, something that could not be satisfied by what was being offered, something that was always going to require more. 2. Your experience of time does not always follow ordinary rules. There are moments in your life when time behaves in ways that do not conform to the clock. Hours dissolve into what feels like minutes during seasons of deep focus, creative flow, or genuine spiritual connection. Single moments expand to contain what feels like an entire landscape of experience. You notice patterns, in numbers, in timing, in the way certain things arrive at exactly the moment they were needed, that accumulate beyond what coincidence can comfortably explain. Dreams arrive with a vividness and a coherence that feels less like the brain processing the day and more like genuine communication from somewhere beyond the ordinary. Moments of déjà vu carry a quality of recognition that is difficult to dismiss. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to reflect something about your inner state or your path, appear with a frequency that gradually becomes undeniable. This is not imagination. It is the natural experience of a soul whose awareness is expanding beyond the purely linear. As you grow deeper into who you are, as the divine within you becomes more active and more conscious, the rigid structure of ordinary time begins to feel less binding. You are learning, gradually, to inhabit a dimension of experience that exists alongside clock time but is not governed by it. The moments when time bends, when life feels less like a schedule and more like a living conversation with something greater than yourself, are not anomalies. They are glimpses of how existence feels when the divine within you is fully awake. 3. You draw deep souls toward you and tend to unsettle those who are not ready. Your presence polarizes people, and it has probably done so for as long as you can remember. There are those who feel immediately and inexplicably at ease in your company, who find themselves saying things they have never said to anyone else, who feel seen in ways they cannot account for, who return to your presence seeking something they struggle to name but clearly need. These are the deep souls, the seekers, the ones whose own inner life is rich enough to recognize and resonate with what you carry. And then there are those who find your presence uncomfortable without being able to articulate why, who become defensive or dismissive in ways that seem disproportionate to anything you have actually done, who feel in your vicinity a subtle pressure that they have no framework for understanding, and who respond to that pressure by creating distance. Both responses are information. The first tells you where genuine connection is possible. The second tells you where someone is not yet ready for the level of authenticity your presence naturally invites. You are not responsible for either response. You do not cause the discomfort intentionally, and you do not engineer the attraction. It happens because of what you carry, a quality of genuine presence, of depth and truth that simply cannot be neutral. It reaches people, and what it reaches in them determines how they respond. 4. You have been through profound seasons of losing yourself and found something deeper on the other side. There have been seasons in your life that felt, while you were inside them, like genuine unraveling. Seasons when the structures you had built around your identity, the beliefs, the relationships, the sense of who you were and what your life meant, collapsed or were stripped away in ways you did not choose and could not control. Seasons when what remained, once everything familiar was gone, felt terrifyingly sparse. These were not punishments, they were initiations. What was being removed in those seasons was what was false. The accumulated layers of conditioning, of performed identity, of the version of yourself constructed to meet external expectations rather than to express what was genuinely inside. And what remained, once those layers were gone, was something more essential, more real, more aligned with the divine that had always been present beneath the construction. You have been through this more than once. Each time the process was difficult. Each time what emerged was more genuinely you than what preceded it. And gradually, through enough of these cycles, you developed a relationship with loss and dissolution that most people never reach. An understanding, rooted in lived experience, that what feels like ending is often the necessary precondition for a truer beginning. This understanding is not something you read about. It is something you were forged into, and it is among the deepest and most distinctive things you carry. 5. You feel the weight of the world deeply, and you transform rather than collapse under it. You do not simply empathize with what others are going through, you feel it. Not as a performance of compassion or a deliberate act of attunement, but as an involuntary and often overwhelming experience of actually carrying what is present in the people and environments around you. The grief in a room, the unspoken tension between two people, the collective weight of a difficult moment in the world. You absorb it before you have the chance to decide whether to. This is not a comfortable quality to carry. It produces a kind of tiredness that sleep does not always resolve, a heaviness that does not always have an obvious source, a need for solitude and restoration that others who do not share this quality sometimes misinterpret as withdrawal or antisocial behavior. But there is another side to it, one that took time and genuine inner work to develop access to. The same sensitivity that makes you absorb so deeply also gives you the capacity to transform what you absorb, to take what arrives as pain or darkness or confusion, and through the alchemy of genuine attention, of compassion, of whatever it is that you do when you are most fully yourself, return it to the world in a form that is lighter, clearer, more oriented toward healing. This is not a small thing. It is, in many ways, one of the most significant contributions a human life can make. And it is something you are already doing, often without knowing it, often without receiving any acknowledgement for it. 6. You speak truth even when it costs you something. There is a quality in how you communicate that goes beyond the content of your words.
When you speak from a genuine place, when you are saying something true, something that reflects your actual perception,
rather than a version of it shaped by what you think others want to hear. People feel it. Something in your delivery bypasses the ordinary processing of language and lands directly in the listener's experience. They may not be able to articulate what is different about it. They simply register that something real just happened. This has not always made your life easier. Speaking from this place, consistently, even when it creates friction, even when what is true is not what is comfortable, has cost you things. Relationships where the truth you carried was not welcome. Spaces where your directness was experienced as threatening. Moments where the easier path would have been to simply say what was expected and move on. You generally did not take that path. Not out of stubbornness or a desire for conflict, but because something in you finds sustained pretense genuinely exhausting. Because the gap between what you actually perceive and what you are being invited to perform is one you cannot maintain for long without losing something essential about yourself. Your words, when they come from that genuine place, carry the particular weight of things that were not easy to say but needed to be said. And people who are ready to receive that kind of truth find it in your presence, even when it arrives in ways they did not expect. 7. The innocent and the pure-hearted are drawn to you naturally. Animals approach you with a trust that they do not extend to everyone. Children regard you with a quality of attention that suggests they perceive something in you that the adults around them have learned to overlook. Strangers, in unguarded moments, tell you things they have not told people they have known for years. This is not something you engineer. It is something that happens in the presence of a particular quality of genuine safety, the kind that comes not from performance or conscious effort, but from an actual absence of hidden agenda, an actual presence of something warm and real beneath the social surface. The innocent respond to this because they have not yet developed the filtering that adults use to manage their responses to other people. They encounter what is actually there rather than what is being presented. And what they encounter in you, that quality of genuine presence, of something deep and trustworthy and real, they move toward naturally. This is one of the quieter signs of the divine within you, not dramatic or visible in most contexts, but consistent and unmistakable to those who notice it. 8. You carry inner landscapes and knowings that feel older than this lifetime. There are things you know that you cannot fully account for through the experiences of your current life. Perceptions about human nature that arrived before you had lived enough to have earned them through observation alone. An understanding of certain kinds of pain that feels more like recognition than learning. A familiarity with certain themes, certain kinds of beauty, certain ways of understanding the world that seem to have been present in you as far back as you can remember, as if they were not acquired but remembered. Dreams that carry a quality of genuine communication rather than simply the brain's nightly processing. Moments of recognition, of places, of dynamics, of souls that feel inexplicably familiar. A sense, difficult to dismiss and impossible to fully explain, that your experience extends further than the years of this particular life. These are not delusions. They are the surfacing of a depth that is genuinely present in you. Evidence of a soul that has been refining itself across more experience than a single lifetime contains, and that carries the accumulated wisdom of that refinement into this one. You are not a new soul finding its way for the first time. You are an ancient one, remembering. 9. Reality responds to you in ways that suggest you are more than a passive participant in it. You have noticed it enough times to no longer dismiss it as coincidence. You think of someone and they reach out. You hold a clear intention, and the circumstances needed to fulfill it begin to arrange themselves in ways you did not engineer. You speak something, genuinely from a place of real conviction, and the world seems to lean in the direction of what was spoken. This is not magic in the theatrical sense. It is the natural consequence of a consciousness that is genuinely aligned, that is operating from a place of coherence between intention, attention, and action, rather than from the scattered, conflicted, half-committed place from which most people most of the time engage with their own lives. When you are truly aligned, when what you want and what you believe and what you are willing to do are all pointing in the same direction, the world responds to that alignment with a cooperativeness that feels remarkable from the outside, but is simply the natural behavior of reality when it encounters a coherent signal. You are not at the mercy of what happens to you. You are, in ways you are still discovering the full extent of, a participant in the creation of what happens. And as your alignment deepens, as the divine within you becomes more fully conscious and more fully expressed, that participation becomes more evident and more intentional. 10. You have always known at some level that you are here for something significant. This is perhaps the most consistent and the most persistent of all the signs. As far back as you can remember, there has been a sense, sometimes quiet, sometimes urgent, sometimes almost unbearably present, that your being here is not without specific purpose. That what you carry, what you have been through, what you are becoming, all of it is oriented towards something that matters, something larger than personal comfort or individual achievement or the ordinary metrics by which most lives are measured. You may not have been able to name it. You may have questioned it, dismissed it in seasons of doubt, wondered whether it was simply the ego's desire to feel important. But it kept returning. It was still there in the morning after the nights you tried to let go of it. It persisted through every season that seemed designed to extinguish it. That persistence is itself information. The things that are genuinely placed in us, the callings that are real rather than constructed, do not yield to discouragement the way manufactured ambitions do. They keep surfacing. They keep insisting. They keep making the life that does not honor them feel insufficient in ways that nothing can fully compensate for. The sense of significant purpose you carry is not delusion. It is not grandiosity. It is the quiet, persistent voice of the divine within you, reminding you, across every season and every doubt and every attempt to settle for less, that you came here with something to do, and that it is not yet done. If you recognized yourself in these words, if something stirred as you listened, something that felt less like learning and more like remembering, hold that recognition gently. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not lost. You are a soul carrying something extraordinary, something placed in you before you had the capacity to understand it. Something that has been present through every season of your life, whether you were aware of it or not. The journey of remembering who you are and what you carry is not always comfortable. It requires honesty, patience, and a willingness to keep moving toward what is true, even when what is familiar is more easily available. But it is the most important journey you will ever take. And the fact that you are here, that this message found you, that something in you recognized it, suggests you are already further along that journey than you may realize. Keep going. Keep remembering. The world needs what you carry. This is the Messages of the Awakening channel. If this stirred something real in you, share it with someone who needs the reminder today. Subscribe for more spiritual awakening content. And leave 1111 in the comments if this found you at exactly the moment your soul needed it. Thank you for being here.